explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
You know about Van Man taking down big toothpaste with all-natural oral care, right? Van Man's tooth powder is loaded with minerals like eggshells and bone, and combined with pulling oils and peppermint aloe mouth rinse, it's truly the ultimate fluoride-free dental hygiene bundle that saves you 25% off the individual prices. And the Van never stops. Introducing Van Man's new Pearl Eye Cream and Sweet Onion Shampoo. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/vanman to see what's new. That's badlandsmedia.tv/vanman. Welcome, Badlanders. Today we're going to talk about drugs. Specifically, psychedelic compounds. The stuff they didn't teach me about in my DARE program when I was in elementary school. So, with psychedelic compounds, they're heavily demonized by the health industry, medical industry, by law enforcement for many decades. Many of them are Schedule I compounds, which is the most illegal, which is the class under the DEA schedule where there is no acceptable medical use. But as many people have experienced, and as we are getting more research coming out, especially recently, a lot of institutes are actually researching things like psilocybin mushroom and DMT and ibogaine and other compounds. There is absolutely medical use for these herbs and mushrooms and plants and vines. So that's going to be our topic of conversation today.
Man, I've kind of been excited about this one because I think it can play such a foundational role for the future of societies, nations, humanity, civilization. It's had such a massive impact, throughout history when we go back before it was demonized in the development of culture. And so I see these baby incremental steps that it seems like we're taking towards legalizing and using these compounds for healing as really exciting.
And one of the reasons I love psychedelic compounds is that it truly breaks down people's mental programming, their brainwashing, their sense of reality. And you don't even have to do them. Same thing with marijuana. You don't have to do it or smoke it or ingest it. You just have to learn about it. Mm-hmm. If you acquire knowledge, the real truth around these plants, what they do, why they've been suppressed for 100 plus years, that's all you need to do to raise your consciousness about them and help break down that mental programming. So it's just the knowledge associated with them. Now, if you want to take that extra step and do them, got to do it responsibly.
Yeah.
Plenty of people out there do psychedelic compounds. They don't really know what they're doing, or they do too much, or whatever the case. The environment they do it in is not so good. And I mean, they're just tools, right? Any tool could be good or bad depending on how you use it. These are tools with profound effects, with profound potential. And many people have been heavily brainwashed about these tools for many, many, many years. So yes, I agree with you. I've been wanting to do this episode for a few weeks. And I think later on in the show, we'll talk about our personal experiences with psychedelic compounds and how it's helped us. But to start off,
before we jump into it, I'm just curious about your opinion on this. So one of the reasons why they're Schedule 1 is that the system says basically that there's no medical value in them, but then the other one is that there's a high propensity for addiction to them. Do you think that that's accurate at all?
It depends. I mean, when it comes to addiction, well, backing up a bit, when it comes to the word drug itself, I think that word has so much baggage associated with it. Mm-hmm. What does drug even mean? Is it good or bad? You go into a doctor, they give you a drug. Is that good or bad? Could be either. These plants and herbs and mushrooms we classify as quote unquote drugs. Are they good or bad? Could be either. And so that word drug just has so much baggage in it. It's a very brainwashy buzzword. Anyway, associated with the addiction aspect, I think there's multiple forms of addiction. There is chemical dependency, and then there is somewhat of like habitual addiction, habitual tendency where it becomes just like a habit. People become addicted to compounds or become addicted to behaviors simply out of habit. And it's not necessarily a behavior that stimulates so much dopamine or the addiction centers of the brain. It's just we're creatures of habit, so they keep doing the thing. Or you also have the chemical dependency, and then the behaviors or the drugs that do both, that's when they have very high levels of addiction. In terms of psychedelic compounds, I have seen some people become addictive, but I think it's a habitual thing where people feel like they need it to be normal or they need it just to function. So it's a habitual addiction. I do not think it's a chemical dependency. I guess it could depend on the compound, but in large part, psychedelic plants and mushrooms, I do not believe have at least much of a chemical dependency. And we'll go through a video here in a moment talking about the exact neurotransmitters that some of these compounds target. But really good question, man.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, when it's hard for my brain to separate this, but when we talk about psychedelics, I always think about just natural compounds. But then if we lean towards like the other end of the spectrum of psychedelics, that would be things like maybe ketamine, MDMA, LSD. And I think that those kind of sit in a different category than, say, plant-based, whole psychedelics.
They do. And with my personal subjective definitions, I wouldn't call ketamine or MDMA psychedelics in that regard. Maybe we need a new name to come up with them, because they're not targeting that pineal gland. They're not targeting receptors in the same necessary way. And when it comes to any psychedelic compound, I don't trust anything that's been put through a chemistry setup. Mm-hmm. So I've never done, and I wouldn't have no desire to do LSD or other things of that nature. If I'm going to do something, it's got to come right from the ground as God intended. And with my personal experience with psychedelics, I've only ever done ayahuasca. I did a weekend ceremony once, and I've done psilocybin a lot. Heavier doses, micro doses, very experienced with psilocybin. But for me, it's never been dependency forming. I never felt like the next day I had to do it again to feel the same way or feel normal, right?
Yeah.
So I can function just fine without it. Granted, I appreciate the benefits, the neuroplasticity rewiring that psilocybin gives me, but yeah, I can function just fine without it. So, but yeah, we can chat a little bit about that later. First off, we wanted to talk about a real old-ish documentary from the early YouTube days. This came out in 2010. It's called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. And this documentary is actually narrated by Joe Rogan. And it's got Graham Hancock in it. It's got many other people, I guess you would consider being psychonauts, mm-hmm. or on the edge, at the forefront of consciousness research. And when did you watch this film, Nate? You mentioned.
What's crazy is I remember watching this where I was at exactly. I was sitting in my mom's living room. And I remember the sunlight coming in, and I was actually sitting with my uncle. We were both watching it together, and it was really eye-opening. At that time, I really didn't know anything about DMT, and it's been forever since I've seen this, so I don't recall the specifics about it, but I just know it was really eye-opening to me that the potential for psychedelics and what they could do.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2010. I think I must have watched it within the first year, because I remember exactly where I was at when I watched it too. And at the time, I was living at home with my parents, so I think I was like home alone one day, and I decided to throw this on the TV, and my brain just melted. And it describes, the illegalities of it, mm-hmm. over the years, the story of how these things were classified illegal. It talks about specific compounds, like where they get DMT itself from. Various Aborigine tribes, indigenous tribes doing it ceremonially. ceremonially. And it also talks about the actual chemical functions of DMT in the brain. Now, that brings us to why DMT and or these psychedelic compounds aren't inherently demonic or evil, is because they're literally targeting what our brain produces, and that is DMT. DMT, otherwise known as dimethyltryptamine, is a compound produced by your pineal gland, sometimes called your third eye, situated kind of front and center in your brain. DMT is produced in high amounts in heavy REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and it's a molecule that's associated with dreaming and altered states of consciousness when you're in deep, heavy REM sleep. Now, all life forms produce DMT, amazingly enough, and that was one thing that kind of blowed my mind about watching that documentary. Is this is a compound that's found within life itself.
Yep.
And it's
I
almost
remember
go ahead.
The big one that hit me was when they were talking about it's actually in grass, like out there in your yard. Grass contains DMT.
Yep. So it's just found within life itself, and it's almost, more research is needed, of course. This is all conjecture, but the documentary was called The Spirit Molecule. DMT is called the spirit molecule. It's almost the molecule within life itself that connects us in some way, shape, or form to our non-physical or energetic selves. Now, DMT can be extracted from different kinds of vines and different kinds of psychedelic plants. It's extracted, and then for millennia, indigenous tribes have done it in the Amazon, in Asia, and Africa, around the world. I mean, even in the Middle East and in Europe, it's just usually, the indigenous tribe is going to find whatever plants or mushrooms are native to that region. So in Peru, it's where ayahuasca is heavily prevalent. Throughout Europe, it's probably mushrooms that the ancient people were walking across one day and they decided to try, and then holy shit, their brain started they started getting kaleidoscope vision. And we're not necessarily going to get into the whole stoned ape theory, which I think there might be something to, but I don't know if I resonate with it 100%. But this is a theory that podcasters like Joe Rogan and others have promoted over the years, and that was one of the things that helped that quantum jump of consciousness from hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago, when we have those missing links. Like, how did the ancient Neanderthals start making wheels and fire and tools so fast? There seemed to be this quantum jump in their consciousness evolution. Maybe it had to do with cosmic factors, but if it was a celestial factor, maybe they did come across some kind of plants or mushrooms and figure out how to sort of synthesize it, start doing ceremonies, and it really just kind of helped the evolution of their awareness. But yeah, DMT is not demonic. It's found in everything. Our brain produces it when we dream. Now, the thing is,
when
go
ahead. Not to pull you off your train of thought there, but the other thing about it too is that they've found that when somebody is in the process of dying, right before death, there's like an explosion of DMT.
That's right.
From the pineal gland.
That's right.
So it is a natural process.
Great thing to point out there. And that might be what is also associated with out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences. People's minds and bodies, their whole mind-body-spirit complex comes so close to death that their brain excretes a large amount of DMT, and then they go into their higher self or astral world, or they go see the God realm or whatever it is. However, whatever lame English words you want to use to describe that, it's difficult to. But for some reason, higher spiritual forces, it's not time for you to die, so they go into that out of body near death experience. It's probably a lot of DMT that helps catapult their brain into that. They go through massive mental, emotional, and spiritual transformation, and then for some reason, It wasn't their time to die. They came back to this planet, and researching people's near-death experiences and all of their testimonies are people are usually radically transformed when they have an NDE.
Yeah.
So I have now let's touch on a list of the most well-known psychedelic plants.
Hey there, Earthlings! I'm here on the streets of New York to tell you about something that's literally out of this world. You know, traveling between dimensions really takes it out of you, but I've found the perfect solution. My shroom vibe can now be your shroom vibe. Elevate your frequency. Get microdose capsules, gummies, and chocolate bars at myshroomvibe.com. Use code Badlands for 10% off your order. Trust me, galaxy hopping demands balance, and ours comes from Mother Nature. Organic, not synthetic. It's the real deal. Lee, if you know what I mean. Check it out. Your frequency will thank you. Visit myshroomvibe.com. Organic goodness, not synthetic. Use code Badlands.
DMT, straight DMT, can be extracted from some vines and some plants, and it can be, isn't it usually smoked?
I think it can either be yeah. So you can do, apparently you can like crystallize DMT. I'm not certain how they do that. But I think usually through traditional ceremony like ayahuasca, probably the way that you did it was drinking.
Yes. So some of these plants help the brain secrete more DMT. But if you're going to do straight DMT, that's what I was asking. I never have. Yeah. I've never done straight DMT. I think I know in laboratory settings, like they're able to do IV drips for sustained periods. So yeah, they do injections. And I think back in my younger days, I had some friends that would smoke it. They would be able to get the crystals and smoke it. In my opinion, DMT, some people have had wonderful experiences on it. I am not discounting that. If it's a helpful tool for a specific person, by all means, great. But subjectively, personally, I've just never had a desire to do it because I think it would be too much for me. And I have come across people who have kind of fried their brain by doing a little too much DMT. Like whatever higher realms their brain goes into when they do DMT, when they come back, it didn't help them positively. Like it really kind of fried them a little bit. I don't think they were mature enough to be able to handle those experiences.
Interesting.
And quick side note here, right? If you do a psychedelic journey, ceremony, plant, just because you do it doesn't mean you're going to dissolve your ego. I've seen plenty of people get even thicker egos after doing ayahuasca or psilocybin because they think, oh, I'm healed now. And just because I did the plant, my ego's dissolved. And it in fact makes them even worse.
It's almost kind of a stereotype, isn't it? Like
have you come across those kind of people? I saw you laugh there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So just quick story. Sorry for that. I was at, it was like a business conference meeting with Robert Kiyosaki and a bunch of other keynote speakers. And I remember I was sitting at this table, long table, and you're just talking with different people. And there was a lady there who had done a couple of ceremonies. And so she somehow, I don't know how, started a retreat. And so she was like the founder of this crazy expensive retreat somewhere in the South Americas for ayahuasca and other ibogaine, those sorts of things. But talking to her, it was almost, there's a stereotype of people who like have done a number of these things and suddenly they think they're enlightened. And I don't even know how to explain it. You know what I'm talking about, though.
I know exactly what you're freaking talking about.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to throw that out there. Just because you do a psychedelic journey does not mean your ego is going to quote unquote dissolve.
Yeah.
Some people it gets worse. And, each of these, let's go down our list here. So the most well-known psychedelic plants, each of these are a little bit different and they target different receptors in the brain, but they're all very similar. Whether they promote DMT endogenous production within the brain itself, or they target associated with receptors. So ibogaine, I believe, is a shrub that comes from Africa. And ibogaine is getting very popular in military veteran circles to help vets deal with their PTSD and their shell shock. Now, unfortunately, ibogaine is super illegal in the States, so most vets have to go down to Mexico to do an ibogaine journey.
It's also, I'll just say this, based on what we see, it also seems like it's extremely effective in helping break addiction to opiates, like 1 or 2 treatments.
Yep. And that could very well be why some of these things have been illegal for so long. I believe ibogaine does target endogenous DMT production. A couple of these target serotonin receptors. I believe ibogaine targets DMT production. Ayahuasca as well, from my understanding, targets DMT production. Now, ayahuasca is very popular in New Age circles. That is the vine that comes from Peru. And you harvest the ayahuasca plant. Mama ayahuasca, as the hippies call it. And you have to go through some kind of boiling process. I forget the exact dynamics of it, but you go through a process to synthesize it. And I believe you have to add in an extra herb so you don't throw up too much when you do it. But usually ayahuasca is done as a multi-day ceremony. And I've done an ayahuasca ceremony before, about 10 years ago. For me personally, I didn't feel much. It didn't do much for me. And we were in a yurt. There was about 10 people with me. And then you had the ceremony leader, and she got the stuff direct from Peru. Usually people physically purge. They vomit at some point during the ceremony overnight. I didn't purge. I did feel a tad different the following couple days, but it didn't have that effect that it did for others. So would I be open to doing it again? Sure, but I'm not actively trying to seek it out. For me personally, psilocybin's just always been my go-to. And in my conjecture brain, I kind of liken that to maybe it's my ancestral heritage, because my ancestry is more Northern European. So there, say Norway, you would have mushrooms growing, things like that. So maybe that's why mushrooms always do better for me, because I don't have any South American ancestry. But yeah. Which of you had experiences with, Nate?
Let's see. I would say morning glory seeds and psilocybin and LSD. Those are the 3 that I have experimented with. And I would say by far the go-to would be psilocybin over the other 2.
Yep.
Morning glory seeds. Those are just, there's a lot of, unless you want to go through the process of extracting, I believe it's LSA from morning glory seeds. It's just kind of a miserable experience because you're on the verge of throwing up all the time. And LSD, it's hard to trust who you're sourcing that from and the safety of it. So
right.
Psilocybin is just kind of like the good old fashioned fallback that I feel like delivers results if you're looking for that sort of thing. So
have you ever had a bad experience?
Yeah. So actually the last time that I used psilocybin, it was probably about 5 to 6 years ago, psilocybin in large dose. And so roughly about 5 grams. And I just leaned back in a chair with, calm music, had intention. And it was, I wouldn't say that it was a bad experience. It was just, it was more disturbing, some of the things that I saw. And I didn't leave the experience feeling good, I would say. And I honestly haven't had the desire to do it again. Before that, I had multiple experiences that left me feeling so connected to the world around me. So just as you go through the process, it's very internal, because it's not something like there's nobody that can save you from it. It's not like falling asleep and having a dream. You can wake up and the dream is over. When you do something like this and you have intention and, you go into it right,
you're going to be on that roller coaster for a few hours, man.
Yeah. You're confronted
there ain't no
with
getting off it.
Yep. Yeah. There's no getting off it. And so if you can find the thing that kind of like turns the key for that uncomfortable experience, it can open a whole different level of like connection and peace. And I can't even, you know what I'm talking about. You can't even put it into words, the type of experience that causes. So
back in my 20s, I would do larger doses of psilocybin, and it was nice growing up in Washington State because I would have friends that would literally go forage in autumn and just pick them out in the forest. So it was easy to come across, and I did larger doses. I had profoundly transformative experiences because I would always do it for pure self-development purposes. I would never do it as a party drug. I would never do it just to get high. It was purely done for spiritual growth. And at times in my life where I was going through some heavy shit, I would say, well, I need a good squeegee to the pineal gland right now. What I would do is I would just block out my whole day pretty much.
Yeah.
And my preferred ceremony, I guess you will, individual ceremony, is that I would have to find some nature, specifically some either grass or sand I could touch, so I could ground with the earth, and weather had to be somewhat decent. And I would do a solid dose, and I'd literally just lay there for hours, like staring at the clouds or talking to the trees.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember 2 experiences. One, both were nice sunny days, late spring, so good weather, some clouds in the sky. One, I was just laying in my front yard on the grass and feeling connected to everything. I remember staring at the trees, staring at the clouds. And then the other one, I walked down to the beach and I was laying in the sand, and that was the best experience ever. More so recently, I don't do such heavy doses anymore. I more microdose. And instead of like one heavy dose one day, I might pick like 4 or 5 days in a row and microdose each day. And then I'll be good for however long, maybe a few months or many months until I do kind of another stint like that. But still very similar. I've only ever had one bad experience on psilocybin, and I don't blame the psilocybin. I blame myself. I was dehydrated. I drank some caffeine. I was way out in the woods, and there were big spiders, and that was just me being a Dumbo. But
yeah, same. I completely agree. When I mentioned the bad experience, it was that was me. I personally believe. Yeah. Yep. And inability to process.
I've heard peyote. I believe peyote grows in the States here, doesn't it? Southwest in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cactus, psychedelic cactus. I've never experienced peyote, but I've heard some things about it. Morning Glory, the bufo toad venom. I guess that's the joke in media, licking toads, and then I think I saw a Simpsons episode about that one time or something.
Which they legitimately do.
Yeah. I don't know much about that one, but it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
Psilocybin mushrooms, we talked a lot about that. Salvia, I've never done salvia. I had some friends do it when I was younger.
That was really popular for like a 5-year window.
Yeah, in like the late 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in high school and early college, I had a bunch of friends do salvia, and I heard good and bad things about it. I guess it's a very quick, like 10 to 15 minute journey, but it hits hard. And some of my friends said they have bad experiences doing it. So I've never done salvia myself, but I believe salvia is legal here in the States.
I think it was. I don't think it is anymore.
They make it illegal?
Yeah.
It's not federally illegal, but many states have begun to restrict salvia's availability. So it depends on the state. It looks like out west, it's still pretty legal, like West Coast and the Mountain West states. But if you're in the Midwest or like Appalachia, probably not. But All right, let's get into some of the studies coming out about these compounds.
Yes.
Emerging mechanisms of psilocybin-induced neuroplasticity.
Which is, so neuroplasticity is just basically the brain's ability to rewire itself. Which is wild, because for years we were told that the brain was like solid state. There was no change to the brain available at all.
Yeah. And that is now becoming debunked. Our notes from this one, as Nate has so graciously written down for me, the brain's ability to rewire itself, unlike traditional antidepressants that take weeks, compounds like psilocybin, LSD, and DMT trigger structural changes, e.g., increased dendritic spine density and synaptic connections within hours to days, often via enhanced brain-derived neurotrophic factor signaling and mTOR pathways. This psychoplastogenic effect can reopen critical periods of brain flexibility, helping reset rigid patterns in depression, PTSD, and addiction. Studies show these changes correlate with long-lasting symptom relief, months to years, after just 1 to 3 sessions.
What's wild about this too is that what they've actually found is, like we always talk about having the right setting for doing something like this and how that impacts. Well, apparently the setting and the intent, the focus on the process actually changes how the psilocybin affects the brain. So a focus on, say, something that has to do with safety and security will impact one certain section of the brain. If you're focused on some other form of development, they'll see on MRI scans, they'll see different sections of the brain respond to that.
Yeah. 1 to 3 days. So when you were talking there, I was thinking about my ayahuasca journey. Intent, that's what you said. I think intent is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's why I had such profound experiences with them, is because my intent going into it was purely for positive transformation and to release whatever crud was in my subconscious. And also that's why it's important, before you even do any of these compounds, to get yourself at least a little personal spiritual healing done. Like, you don't want to go into doing DMT or ayahuasca or any of this stuff just fritzed, and you have to go into it a little detoxed, both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Like with ayahuasca journeys, when I did mine years ago, it was suggested that for, I think, 5 days, 3 to 5 days beforehand, cut out, almost fast, like cut out coffee, cut out any addictions. You kind of have to go into it a little bit prepared for it to really hit deep.
Actually, that's a good point, because I would say that some of my most profound experiences were when I did do at least a 24-hour fast before it.
Yeah, if it's just 24 hours, that's fine.
Yeah.
But sort of prepare yourself to go into the journey. You just don't want to go into it all willy-nilly with all this depression and addictions and all this stuff. And I have to get rid of it. I'll do a bunch of psilocybin, and then that could be a problem. So you need to do some inner work, a little bit before, to ready yourself. But neuroplasticity, efficacy and safety of psilocybin in the treatment of major depressive disorder. All these studies are from within the last 12 months as well, and they're all published in pretty major journals, it looks like. November 2025, that was just a couple months old. February 2025. So there's a lot of research finally coming out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we've covered this on MAHA News. RFK Jr. has spoken very openly and earnestly about psychedelics.
Yeah. Yep. And it seems like there's an uptick in states that are presenting, possible solutions for legalizing psychedelics, it seems like it's mainly around psilocybin. Some of them are focused on MDMA for treatment of things like PTSD, addiction, bipolar, depression.
Yep. Yeah, we'll check out that map in a moment. Notes on this study, especially depression and PTSD, meta-analysis of randomized trials show large effect sizes. Psilocybin for major depression with benefits just after even 2 or 3 sessions up to 6 months. Recent umbrella reviews confirm psychedelics outperform many conventional therapies in short-term efficacy with no strong signals of any serious harm. So if we're talking about why it's been illegal, yeah, makes sense, right?
Like you want to sit there with a psychiatrist for 24 months discussing all of your problems. And
They want you to.
Yeah.
So you pay them $50,000.
Yep.
What pharmaceutical company makes Zoloft? Yeah, they sure don't like psychedelics because they want people coming back for their SSRIs and antidepressant medications. Dude, there's a few industries that would be hugely disrupted by psychedelics.
Practically decimated.
Practically decimated. Psychiatry, the antidepressant industry, also opiates. Any cartels or any pharmaceutical companies making opiates for the black market to get everybody addicted. You know, China or the CIA or whoever pumping fentanyl into our communities. They don't want to see people get unaddicted to their opiates.
Yep.
So yeah, this is our list here of just the illegality of major compounds, plants, mushrooms. Most of them, as you can see, are all Schedule 1. And under the DEA's Schedule 1 of their Controlled Substances Act, that is the most illegal, no accepted medical use. Also, I think they claim high possibility for addiction, basically like the death compounds, which marijuana was a Schedule 1 till a couple months ago when Trump moved to reschedule marijuana from 1 to 3. I really hope President Trump does that with at least some of these psychedelic compounds, at least reschedules them from 1 to 3 by the end of his term.
Yep. Yeah, at least psilocybin. I mean, well, and peyote. I know that is important to a lot of cultures, I would say,
especially Native Americans, because that grows in the states here. Psilocybin, peyote, ayahuasca, and ibogaine. I would say those 4.
Yeah.
So, and
then, I would say, I mean, under the right under the right conditions, I believe MDMA does serve a certain role. I mean, I'm not too big on synthetic compounds, but there's a lot of research and a lot of really intelligent people out there that have been using MDMA in controlled research, and it seems like it can have a pretty big impact.
Yeah, maybe there's some kind of testing out there where blood tests or some kind of test can be ran to show exactly what neurotransmitters in the brain and body are not firing right or something, whether it is serotonin, whether it's some other neurotransmitter. And then there can be a targeted approach with one or more of these compounds to address that specific deficiency in the individual, which is why research is needed. And it would be nice to at least reschedule some of these things so more research could be done. Yep. I know with the Mexican clinics that some veterans are going to help with their depression and PTSD. They're usually a hybrid approach. So I think ibogaine is done for a day or two, maybe multiple days, and then they finish it up with an IV of straight DMT. So it's kind of like but I would venture to guess they probably have multiple levels. Like if you want to go all for it, here's the itinerary of what we're going to do. If you want like a more low key ceremony, here's the compounds. You could choose which ones and sort of how effective do you want this? How much of a journey you want to go on? But
well, and I think I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
man. Just one last thing. I would say that one of the big things that really got me excited is looking at specifically ibogaine and ketamine. Both of them seem to have a pretty large impact on not only on your brain, but also on your nerves and your nervous system. So there's a lot of people that suffer from neuropathy or certain type of nerve pain, and they're told that, well, nerves are the slowest growing, thing inside of your body. So it's going to be years of suffering. And it seems like with a lot of the research recently that with low dose ketamine or high dose ibogaine, they're seeing extremely rapid growth of nerves, which is, that's completely new and unexpected from traditional medicine.
Very nice. Very nice. I was just going to say I would love to see clinics and cabins and ranches of spiritual healing centers where anybody could legally go and pay for a weekend or a week-long ceremony, but maybe someday.
Well, it kind of seems like that's where we're heading.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we got getting into the decriminalizing or legalizing of it. You've got some states, New Mexico governor signed legislation that will allow patients diagnosed with PTSD to legally use psilocybin under medical supervision.
Mm-hmm.
Medical supervision. Just give me that, doc. I'll go do it myself.
You want to come sit in the forest with me 4 miles out? Let's go.
Colorado set to open its first healing centers for psychedelic mushrooms, offering supervised psilocybin therapy. Oh, I would hate to do it supervised, though. I would hate that.
Yeah.
Feel like I just have this like set of eyes watching me. And then here's a map of psilocybin mushrooms in particular. Red is super illegal, so you can see most of the world it's illegal in. Yellow is ambiguous, partially legal, decriminalized. So, hey, I guess Australia and Canada are good for something. Purple is legal. And here in the States, it depends on the state. So, green, legal for medical use. Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico. I believe the orange states, what's orange? Illegal state with, I think, like beginning the process of decriminalization. So Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Washington, California. Depends on the state, but mostly red and mostly a felony. How amazing. God grows a mushroom in the ground. You pick it, you're a felon. Humans are silly.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that this map would have looked very similar to cannabis.
Yeah, true. But then it's like the argument with cannabis legalization is that a lot of these states are just doing it ass backwards, right?
They are.
They're. But it's two totally different things. I mean, you're not going to be going and growing hundreds of acres worth of mushrooms like mom and pop weed growers or cartel weed growers do. I mean, the growing of the two things is totally different. And the amount ingested as well. I mean, you've got some stoners that'll go through how much pot per day.
Yeah.
Grams and grams and grams and grams of it, and do it every day. So the usage with ayahuasca and mushrooms would be totally different.
One of the biggest use cases I see for, say, psilocybin, if it were legalized on a federal level, is not, big hero doses all at once. It's the, a couple of days a week over the course of a month. And so I just see this as being tremendously useful for people, especially people struggling with anxiety, depression, all that normal stuff that goes with modern life.
Yeah, I think we should get the government out of our butts and fully legalize, but the way we legalize has to be done responsibly. And regarding marijuana, some of these states are not doing it responsibly the way they're legalizing, but I think it should be legal.
Bong rip in a can.
What's up?
That's what they're selling. It's like bong rip in a can. You know, it's like that's what they're selling. You walk into a store and you see it there. You know,
I know.
If they completely legalized it, you'd walk in and there'd be like here's a 10 milligram or a 10-gram dose of mushrooms in a single energy drink.
Oh God.
They do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Finishing up, we have this quick 5-minute video that we're going to play here. How psychedelics work, explained in under 6 minutes. This gentleman goes into the specific chemical nature of the compounds and what receptors it targets in the brain, what neurotransmitters. So it's a pretty cool 5-minute video. I'm just going to play the whole 5 minutes and put it full screen.
Every psychological experience has a biological correlate. These are two sides of the same coin. You see the color green. There's something happening in your brain that's coding that experience of the color green. So with psychedelics, the biggest divide is whether we're talking about on the psychological side or the biological side. Does it work by hitting these brain receptors and then having other effects, or does it work because of the experience? Clearly, there's this very real biological effect. Something dramatic happens to the brain when you put the psychedelic in the system. But then someone has this experience, and when they change their life because of that, that ends up sounding more like they went through a really good course of psychotherapy. So psychedelics are really interesting at that bridge between the biological and the psychological. What psychedelic means from its linguistic roots is mind manifesting. The idea that these are mind manifesting, that's consistent with this other notion that these are non-specific amplifiers. In other words, you could have a euphoric experience, you could have a hellish experience. Also, terminology is so difficult in this area. Psychedelic can be used to refer to what are called the classic psychedelic compounds: psilocybin, which is in magic mushrooms, LSD, DMT, which is in ayahuasca, mescaline, which is in peyote. Those are the classic psychedelics. They affect a particular type of serotonin receptor, and that's their primary mechanism of action. But then you have other drugs that I think it's appropriate to call them psychedelic. Other scientists will disagree. So, for example, MDMA will work by releasing serotonin. So that's a different mechanism. And you have other drugs such as ketamine and PCP. So that affects the glutamate system in the brain primarily rather than the serotonin system. So what does psychedelic mean then if it refers to multiple pharmacological classes of drugs that work in different ways? And the answer for me is that these are all drugs that can have a profound effect on one's sense of reality, including one's sense of self. The huge question that's always thrown out is, how do these psychedelics work? And you can just come at that from so many different angles. Now, to go down that biological path, what's happening? There's a lot going on. For example, psilocybin, which people may know as the active agent in so-called magic mushrooms, once it's circulating through your blood after you've eaten some of it, it actually converts to a related compound called psilocin, which is the thing that's actually hitting the brain receptors. And it activates a subtype of serotonin receptor. So we have lots of different types of serotonin receptors in our brain. One is called the serotonin 2A receptor. And psilocybin and the other classic psychedelics can latch onto that the same way that our serotonin latches onto these brain receptors. So psilocybin affects serotonin, but then serotonin affects the glutamate system. And then at another level, you had this massive increase in communication across these different silos in the brain. That is probably an important level of analysis that is underlying at the psychological level. Patients who have claims of insight, viewing themselves from a radically different perspective, from a different lens, and based on animal research, there also seems like they're maybe increase neuroplasticity in the system so that in the days following the psychedelic experience, people are more primed to learn new things. There's a greater ability to establish a new and more optimal normal state. So there seemed to really be something important about the nature of the experience that people have during these sessions. It's not just about hitting a certain type of serotonin receptor in the brain. There's something about the psychology of the experience that unfolds during that session that tends to be important, which is in some sense what makes the psilocybin treatments a bit more like psychotherapy than traditional psychiatric medications where you just take the pill and just, you forget it. There's some interacting reasons why the psychedelic renaissance is happening now. Our society has been in a mental health crisis, and it's been stagnating. Pharmaceutical companies don't make the investments in new mental health care treatments like they did decades ago. I mean, the best medical treatments that we have for many addictions are substitution treatments, also known as agonist treatments. I think these are good. But when you don't see success, I would say it's probably because they failed to get to the roots of these mental disorders, including addiction. And that's why I think psychedelics have been so successful. Nothing is going to be a miracle cure for everyone. Nonetheless, they have so much promise, and we have to have that balance. I think that's more possible today.
And I think most modern treatments for addiction usually just replace one addiction with another, fortunately. Yeah. Some people become very addicted to their SSRIs. And if you look at the whole chemical process of an SSRI, a select serotonin reuptake inhibitor, effectively your brain will become dependent on the SSRI just to get enough serotonin in the brain. Like it'll continuously lower your endogenous production of it, your reuptake. So you need that SSRI just over time. You need that SSRI just to get back up to baseline. Like it's not actually doing anything to help with balancing that delicate neurotransmitter, symphony going on up there.
Yeah.
So there we go. Psychedelics, man, far out, man. But it is, it's actually a very important topic. Very important topic. There's a lot of potential there, and it's good to see it start to get taken seriously by the medical establishment, and hopefully in the future we will see some decriminalization or rescheduling, and it get taken much more seriously by healthcare institutions and research outfits.
Yeah, I think as the medical models change, the medical models are going to have to change because obviously there's a lot of incentive to keep the current models and the SSRIs and to push these things out. But based on the research that's coming out, psychedelics have a very profound role in healing and helping people through a lot of the ickiness that is in life right now. And so we're going to have to see things change in the medical models. And I think overall, if we look at like where that would end up, if these things were legalized, the changes that we would see, not only in people's satisfaction and happiness in life, but then also these big medical cartels, for lack of a better term, taken out. I think this is a tremendous direction.
Well, these big industries, food and pharma, they never like things they can't patent. They can't patent these natural compounds. Now, they can synthesize one chemical out of the natural compounds and patent their synthesizing process for it. So maybe that'll be the only way they budge, if they're allowed to come out with a product that you have to get a prescription for and they can patent. But I wouldn't go that route. I would just go au natural, as God intended. Just go to the source, whether it's a vine or a mushroom or what have you. And yeah. Anyway, good
awesome
talk, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Appreciate all you guys for watching. Go ahead and subscribe here on Badlands, and we will see you guys on Friday for the live stream, MAHA News.
In a quiet town where beards grow wild and lips dare to crack without permission, one woman has suffered.
Hi, I'm Margie, and I'm Jatriot's mother.
But the world would come to know her by another name, Madame Margie, the moistureless.
Jay came home with a lip balm. It's called Soft Disclosure.
With one miraculous application, her power awakened.
Within one day, my lips were healed. It was miraculous.
But salvation came at a cost. For in the shadowed lands known only as Badlands,
You boys at Badlands are so handsome.
she saw potential,
You're covering up your beautiful faces.
and she made her demand,
Shave them all off,
or face the consequences. Beard oil will not save you now.
and you'll look so much better.
This summer, moisturize wisely and guard your beard, because Madame Margie, the moistureless, is always watching.
Virtual tickets for GART 11 in Nashville, Tennessee are now available. Grab them at an early bird special price between now and March 15th. After that, the regular price of $40 kicks in. The virtual tickets are great. You can watch the whole thing live. You'll get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content, live stream during the VIP dinner. It's a great viewing experience. If you can't come there in person for whatever reason, grab your virtual ticket and you'll be able to not only support Badlands, but watch the full event from late Thursday through Sunday, and you'll get access to exclusive stuff that won't be publicized on the Badlands Rumble channel. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/events to snag the lowest price for virtual tickets.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.